That'd be great if you could just have a piano player walk around with you while you're talking to people. Kind of like background, very soothing, it'd be very nice. Well, from Amber Ray Dunn, of course, the next pivot is straight to Helen of Troy, of course. That makes perfect sense. Yes, indeed. Maria Zoccola is a Southern writer and educator, originally from Memphis, Tennessee. This is her debut collection of poetry, y'all. It is called Helen of Troy, 1993, from Scribner's. It was published, yes, she happens to have a copy. Published, my note here says January 14th of this year. The very next week, the New York Times selected it as one of their books we recommend this week, right out of the chute. And here she is on Thacker Mountain Radio Hour. Y'all please welcome Maria Zoccola. Delighted to have you here, and congratulations on the Times thing.
Oh, thank you. When I first started writing these poems, I did not think anybody was going to read them. I thought they were going to be between me and my notebook, and the reception that these poems have gotten out in the world has just blown me away. I mean, it's the biggest dream a poet can have, that somebody cares about the pieces that they're writing.
Well, I mean, don't worry about it, because that happens with every book. The Times picks it up as soon. I mean, so that's going to be old hat after all. No, it's truly amazing and very worthy. Now, you may have to refresh some of our readers and audience members about Helen of Troy. We know she was kidnapped, we think, and started the whole Trojan War, 10-year war, where they had armies to go and try to get her back from her abductors, who she may have gone with on her own accord. So is she a victim or a villain? That's sort of the big question about Helen.
We don't know. When we look at ancient mythological accounts, we see that some folks think she runs away with the Trojan prince Paris, that she starts an affair that launches the Trojan War. Others say that Paris kidnaps her, abducts her from Sparta, and that launches the Trojan War. Either way, the Trojan War does happen, this decade-long war that kills a generation of men and ends the age of heroes in Greece. So regardless of how it comes about, I think a lot of people in the Iliad consider her a villain. In this book, I decide she does have an affair with Paris. It's her choice to run away with him.
Yeah, you have actually sort of given her voice and given an agency, as they say now, because she didn't have much choice in the matters in Homer's poem.
It's true. In the Iliad, Helen is a character without choices. She is told to marry Menelaus. She is given to Paris by Aphrodite as a reward in a beauty contest among immortals. At the end of the Trojan War, she's taken back across the sea by her former husband, Menelaus. She's treated like an object throughout the Iliad. And the Iliad, which is about, it's the size of a brick. If you can't see me, I'm making about an inch thick. It's a long poem. She only speaks about 6 times in the entire Iliad. So my goal with this book was to return Helen's agency to her, to give her every choice. Perhaps the choices she makes aren't good choices, they're imperfect choices, but they're her choices to make.
And part of the genius of this book is the setting, Sparta, Tennessee, Sparta, of course, correlating with where the poem takes place. But it's all, you've got her at Chuck E. Cheese, you've got her having an annoying teenage daughter, you've got so you put it in the 90s in eastern Tennessee. You didn't grow up there.
No, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, the urban South. This is a very different setting, the rural South and Middle East Tennessee. I did a lot of research for this book. I stayed in that part of the world. I had conversations. I wanted to feel in my body what it was like to be in that part of the country, to feel the nature and what it was like to walk through those hills, so I could create in this book a world that felt true, even though it wasn't my own truth, my own childhood.
You've got 3 different sort of narrators that we hear from in the story, in the poetry. Helen of Troy, of course, we hear Helen, but then we hear from the Sparta women. These are the sort of the gossipers who think she's the town, trash or whatever. And then you've got the swan. We hear from the swan. And for those, again, who may have forgotten their Homer poetry, tell us about Helen's origins related with the swan, because it's quite a genealogy.
In mythology, Helen's father is Zeus. Zeus transforms himself into a swan and assaults Helen's mother, Leda, and out of that union comes Helen and her brother Pollux, who are born from the shells of eggs. They're not swans, but they are birthed from a swan. So when we're retelling this myth, especially modern female artists retelling this myth, the question is, what do we do with the swan? Do we keep that legacy of violence tied to the swan? When I look at modern art by female artists, I often see reducing the swan to skeletal remains or returning Leda's agency to her in different ways. In this book, I decided to remove Zeus from the swan entirely. Zeus doesn't really exist in 1993 Sparta, Tennessee. The swan is free, therefore, to be and to become this metaphor for Helen, to become this guardian spirit for the town, to not have this legacy of violence still associated with this bestial form.
You have, the poems are straight ahead with their titles. It'll be Helen of Troy surfs the net, Helen of Troy goes to Chuck E. Cheese. And I mentioned Chuck E. Cheese more than once because it's a little bit of a longer poem in that it's like maybe a page, and all these are fairly short. But to me, it really, I read it 2 or 3 times. It's so, I hate to say clever, but it's so smart and so funny. Where did you get the inspiration for Helen of Troy goes to a Chuck E. Cheese? Because it's some good stuff.
The plot of the poem, such as it is, is that Helen is dragging her about 12-year-old daughter to this Chuck E. Cheese birthday party hosted by the women from her neighborhood who are inviting her to this party just because they really just want to kind of drag her into the spotlight and gossip about her. This is after she's returned to Sparta from her affair. And Helen's going to this party saying, I'm not ashamed of what I did, I'm not ashamed of who I am. But when she gets to the party, she realizes maybe she is a little ashamed. It's a lot harder to walk amongst your community than it is to just picture it in your head, what that would be like. So she ends up reconnecting with her daughter kind of up above the crowd in Chuck E. Cheese at the top of a foam-padded play tower and realizing that family is really all that she needs. She doesn't need this community around her who have rejected her for what she did.
Oh man, it's good stuff. You can smell the pizza. You're talking about how these kids smell, just reek of pizza. We are going to hear a couple of poems, if I will get out of your way, which I'm getting ready to do. Congratulations again on the reception of this, and it is great, great fun. You did really a whale of a job with it.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting to be here, and it's an honor to read poems for the audience here and the audience listening at home.
It is Helen of Troy, 1993, Maria Zoccola, y'all.
With y'all today. The first one is the poem that opens the collection. It's called Helen of Troy Feuds with the Neighborhood. If you never owned a bone-sharp biography, I don't want to hear it. If you didn't slide from the house at night to roll four-wheelers out the shed, if you didn't catch branches on your cheeks and flip the beast in a mud rut, go down yelling, come up laughing. If you didn't roar the woods with star-love brothers, with blood-weight sister, squinting through pine dirt, through cobweb, through creatures with fur that explode into wings, through devils with fins that grow legs and run, through boys who become brutes and become boys again, through girls who die and stay that way. If you didn't see a swan become a wolf, if you didn't see a wolf clamp teeth around a swan, if you didn't go away and come back again, Helen Judas, Helen stranger, Trojan Helen, Helen of the outside. If you didn't limp your way home, dark house, door sealed tight, all the street with eyes sewn shut, I don't want to hear it. I want you silent. I want you listening to me. news from her sister. And now for the death report. Shuffle snap of newsprint staticking down the line. Background howl of kitties brawling for Fruit Loops and wielding skippets like morning stars. Sharp shriek for each blooming bruise. 3 boys in West Memphis, 76 Waco Branch Davidians, 10,000 under an earthquake in India. Are you listening to me, Helen? A ferry sank in South Korea and everyone on board drowned. My sister before church, after golf, between rounds on the Thighmaster. 93 meant death in daily installments. Plastic-wrapped Reaper Man delivered before dawn to the driveway's dirt dip. Cly cradling the cordless in the soft of her neck and shouting her 3 tax breaks into shoes and bags and bus, or 2 tax breaks now, I should say. I must remember to say, although we don't talk children, mine or hers, we talk car bombs and Clinton and an Alabama Amtrak run off the Big Bayou Bridge, 47 dead. And when we run out of black and white, we turn on Channel 6 to watch Charles Gibson roll down the teleprompter and tell us how the Srebrenicin safe zone is a beacon in the dark. Some phone calls, you know, from the landline's first voice. The auger of the bell, a skinned nerve jamming the kitchen with noise. One long night and the headline to follow. The quiet obit, the funeral, the wake. The news delivered from mouth to mouth across Bell South's web of silver wires. An endless ringing I hear in my sleep. It's no wonder my sister can't stop calling. We're bombing Mogadishu. We're bombing Baghdad. Little tick marks on an internal chalkboard. Tiny weights added to a heart-held scale. A year of swallowing bylines and vomiting them back out again. Every hour, a new scoop. Names above the fold, names below. Her daughter, a lead, she buries with both hands. All right, last poem. This poem is second from the end of the collection. It's part of that Spartan Women series that Jim was talking about, this group of women who gather to gossip and comment on the other characters and events of the collection. This one is called The Spartan Women Discuss Helen of Troy. Years ago, though she afterward recovered, a girl was born who was not a swan. Thick-boned, earth-bound, she looked every minute over her shoulder for the real life she was promised, but her neck was too short, and she could not see it. Ah, Helen, when you're dead, we'll cherish you again. We'll touch your face in our photo albums and tell each other what you did, how you climbed the tallest hill and sprang from the summit, a shining smear of predestination, wingless, featherless, taunting your own fall. We'll remember how you launched yourself, beautiful and suffering, mortal as a wound. Thank you so much.
Maria Zoccola, y'all. Maria Zoccola, great job. Helen of Troy, 1993. It is from Scribner's Poetry. And Maria will join us after the show at our table. I believe we're just going to end up having a little mini throwdown out there in the lobby after the show, if y'all have a second. A lot of fun, really smart poems, really a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Congratulations.